All right. Today is the 22nd of January. It is the new moon, and we certainly intend to go on in a way that is new and hopefully in a really positive direction. I'm very, very pleased to see so many wonderful people coming together on this podcast and via email. I'm getting some really wonderful documents together, and intel is sort of pouring in. I'm very, very grateful. The more, the better, because I am relatively new to this. So in this episode 4, I am going to look at the post-publication propaganda, let's say, or perhaps just the information that was put out in the immediate aftermath of hoax going live. And I'm going to try my very best to ask some questions, do some prodding, some poking, and I'll actually be speaking directly to or calling out to a number of journalists and asking them some hard-hitting questions. So Arthur Katow, Angela Power-Disney, Edward de Boer, anyone who's out there to really help this podcast illuminate the inconsistencies, the conspiracy that might be at play here with MONSTROUS's work. If you can, go and share directly with these journalists my work so that they can know that I'm calling out to them and respond, because I have some questions, but I don't have Twitter. I'm not particularly au fait with social media. Don't stress about the fact that I look like I've been beaten up. I've not been, whilst I have had a family argument this weekend. I've been in the pool this morning and doing backstroke. Somebody accidentally freestyled into my face and my eye, so that's why I'm looking like that. I'm not under threat from anybody. Okay, so when the hoax podcast first came out, there were 2 reviews. One on the 22nd of, I'm just checking the details here, 22nd of September, and the other one was 3 days later on the 25th. So we'll go through it chronologically. I'm sorry that I've not been able to organise my PowerPoint or keynote presentation properly. I will get to the stage where I can have my PowerPoint with the quotes and the links and so forth together whilst I'm narrating, but I'm currently on the road, so I'm not able to do that yet. So because we're dealing with satanic ritual abuse here, and I already was a little bit late, as Arthur said, I'd missed the boat on the hoax podcast because I had planned to do this much earlier than I did. So timing is of the essence, and I want to make sure I get it out rather than get it out looking beautiful, because what matter is it? Aesthetics, not any, if any at all. So first anomaly. The only 2 newspapers that came out to review the hoax podcast were The Guardian, and this one was written by Stephano Montrall. The Guardian, 22nd of September, hoaxed podcast investigation of Hampstead satanic paedophile ring - which doesn't exist. That's the heading. That's the title. That's the catchy top line. Tells us immediately it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Satanic ritual paedophile ring doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Very poor writing there. Coming to your conclusion in your headline, not great. But the other one is written by Patricia Nicol. Please do a shout out to her if she has a Twitter. Get her to know that I'm asking her to come and speak to me, email me, get in touch. And her article, 3 days later, is called Hoaxed Podcast, the makers of Sweet Bobby, just in case you missed it, investigate a satanic baby eating cult. That is the headline, the title for Patricia Nichols. Now, Neither of these works, neither of these published pieces written by presumably people who have studied journalism, who have taken an informal oath to uphold the truth and to protect sources and to do the right thing and to be ethical. Neither of them have shown or cited anywhere their previous affiliation with MONSTROUS. Now, we know MONSTROUS worked at The Guardian and The Times. And isn't it a coincidence that they are the only two big newspapers who have chosen to do a review? If there are others, please link them to me. Let me know about them, because, as I say, I printed these out some time ago and analysed them a little while ago. So perhaps there are some others. So we'll go with the first one. Now, I know we've got to keep to time. So the first one, as I said, Stephano Montrall, written on Thursday, the 22nd of September. The way it positions this monstrous is incredible to me, and there are a number of phrases that keep appearing. So first of all, the subheading after the headline that tells us that it's a satanic paedophile ring, which doesn't exist ASAP. The byline, or the little heading, is this new series explores a conspiracy theory that has destroyed the lives of hundreds of North London parents. So there we go. Again, this is very much pro the possible perpetrators and teachers, despite its baseless allegations. So the word conspiracy, it's not a particularly long article. The word conspiracy is used 14 times, and the word, or the adjective rather, baseless, is used 3 times. And it says a number of times as well that there's no evidence. There's no evidence. They really want to hammer that point down. So it's got a picture of Monstrous, aka Monstrous, and is that his real name? Like, I don't know. He is privileged. His point of view is privileged over the children, over the parents of the children. And underneath that image of him staring sort of fervently into the camera, he says, "I find it unforgivable." So straight away, he's given voice. He's privileged. He's the forerunner of, in terms of his positioning. And it's this idea that the allegations are unforgivable. Not the way the police have not really dealt with it properly, the way Justice Palfrey has perhaps overstepped her lines. No, the problem for Monstrous is that these allegations have hurt these poor North London parents. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. In the first paragraph, it explains that 2 children accused their father of running a Satan-worshipping paedophile ring. And the way it's worded is dodgy too. And it's hard to explain why, but they say, this writer, Mr. Montrall, says, according to them, the children, who were 7 and 8 at the time, according to them, Ricky Dearman led a group of roughly 175 parents, teachers and religious leaders whose demonic abuse was centred on their school and adjoining church in the affluent North London neighbourhood of Hampstead. They claimed that when police visited those locations, they would find dead babies. So immediately from paragraph 1, positioning the children as liars and saying, from all the evidence that the children gave, it's that, oh, you go there, you'll find dead babies. Now, this is done deliberately, I would say, so as to set them up. So it appears over top, like you'd roll your eyes, yeah, right, they're going to find dead babies. And of course, they didn't find dead babies. So we can, breathe easy again. There's no satanic paedophile ring. It doesn't exist. Now, if I go through it in that much detail, we're not going to have time to do everything. So I will post the link to this and you can have a look at it in yourself. In the second paragraph, it immediately skips very quickly to the fact that police found no evidence and that the children recanted and that they revealed the eerie truth. It was an eerie truth. So this is just paragraph 2. Hasn't really explained the fact that they were children who were able to corroborate one another's stories. Hasn't quoted anything more believable that they said. Like, in my school, our teachers are all best friends. As a teacher, I think I listened to that. I heard that very early on. And I thought, oh no, I know where this is going. So that's the kind of thing that goes on. But she's not included. He has not included that. And then straight to the status quo's perspective, that the judge would later refer to it as torture, the way Ella Draper, aka Ella Gariva, and her partner at the time, Abraham Christie, described it as, the judge described it as torture, that they were put up to this. And then it says, but because the abuse happened on Moroccan soil, the police closed the case. Wow, that's really interesting. And Christie and Draper fled the country. So paragraph 1, paragraph 2, it's like nothing to see here. It's Ella's fault. It's Abe's fault. We're not going to bother, prosecuting them for this horrific torture of children because they're out of the country. So, all right. And then it goes on to say that these claims were shared widely online, and that gave rise to a widely shared conspiracy theory. Now, this is true. It is widely shared. There are many people who believe the children. I, at this stage, am absolutely one of them. And then it goes on. Oh, poor things. Dearman, poor little Dearman, darling Dearman, the alleged satanic leader of this cult, the children's father, and 175 other people were falsely accused, and they received harassment, death threats, and online abuse, which continues to this day. Now, I wonder, they're using the rule of 3, harassment, the list, the death threats, online abuse, and it continues. Very effective. By using that list, it emphasizes the scope of the problems that these poor 175 people are suffering. Again, siding with the possible perpetrators. Now, it might seem strange to you if you're watching this and you haven't read Document A, which I have in my hot little hand here. Remember, I've read parts 1, parts 2. I've got part 3 and 4 to upload very soon. If you are not familiar with Document A and you're not familiar with the details of the case, you might think that this is reasonable. But when you know the case, you can see this is absolutely unreasonable to be siding with these people. Now, they go on, of course, to talk about Sweet Bobby and how wonderful it was. They're trying to create this knock-on effect to give this show credibility and make people feel that it's hyped up and it's something that everybody's listening to. As I said in the last episode, like Serial, Adnan Syed's story, or The Teacher's Pet. This is not that, but it's trying to be that. Back to paragraph 2. Just wondering, did any of those 175 people who have supposedly been harassed and having their lives threatened and just online abuse all the time, I wonder if they've ever sought compensation for this terrible treatment? Particularly because they're socially powerful people, they're affluent people. You don't live in the North London suburb of Hampstead without being somewhat privileged. So this writer goes on to just make sure we know that this is the first podcast MONSTROUS has created since making this paper, The Guardian, deemed the best podcast of 2021. Now, isn't that fascinating? So MONSTROUS worked at The Guardian for maybe 10 years, something like that. He can confirm that. probably with this writer and probably with this writer as well, the Times and the Guardian. And they ranked Sweet Bobby last year. That's interesting, isn't it? The best podcast. Listen to it. Have a look at the names of the other podcasts that were out in 2021 and have a think about whether you think that it's good judgment from the Guardian that they ruled Sweet Bobby the best podcast of 2021. Sweet Bobby was, they're plugging their own Tortoise Media bullshit, a mind-bending, unbelievable but true catfishing story about a woman who falls in love with a man online and over the phone until years later she discovers that she's actually her female cousin. Okay, plug. But do you see what I'm saying here? MONSTROUS, barrister, studied English at Cambridge, has worked at The Guardian and The Times for 10 to 12 years. And then, surprise, surprise, he goes off, starts this falsely marginalised, small man sort of startup media company, Tortoise Media, and somehow makes the podcast that is deemed by The Guardian, where he used to work, as the best podcast in 2021. And then on those coattails, he has then produced this wonderful thing called Hoaxed. And of course, his old mates. So I put that question to you, Stephano Montrall. Tell me, did you work with MONSTROUS? Did you work with MONSTROUS? Or has he left since you were there? Are you the one that's been picked to write this gushing review of it? Tell me, do you know MONSTROUS? Have you worked with him? Can we find out if you have worked with him? And if you have, why have you not declared that conflict of interest? Because you cannot write a fair and objective review about someone's work, if you have worked with them in close association. It might instead be an advertisement, and there are important rules around making that clear when something is being presented as an advertisement. So interesting. It tells us here that MONSTROUS was sort of got involved in this Hampstead issue by a legal contact who had been helping a mother embroiled in it. So again, one of the alleged perpetrators. A suspect, perhaps, even. That's how he found out about this. Very interesting. Very interesting. The wording here, the lexical chain or repetition really does try its very, very hardest to make us realise that this is baseless, that they are claims, that these allegations against Dearman were fictitious, would be dismissed as baseless. They still became a full-blown conspiracy theory. Oh, here we go. There's another reference to it being baseless. MONSTROUS's real problem in this article, as retold by this Montrall individual, is that one of the activists, now we know who they're referring to, that was working with Draper, gained access to the Google Drive of one of the parents, downloaded a photograph of her 9-year-old daughter and uploaded it online, describing her as the star of a sex show. So of everything that this Guardian journalist has chosen to focus on in this short review, it's this. That's very, very interesting that this one person did this one thing. It's really cherry picking there. And I ask, what would be the reason for that? Why would they need to include that minor, obscure sort of detail when there is such a plethora of other information that should be included about what the Hampstead children have said? This writer is in on it, in my opinion. he explains how there was a well-known intermediary who refers to herself as the Great British Bird, who helped to arrange to get Draper Ella Gariva on the podcast. Now they make a concession about Ella for that appearance of objectivity. Ella comes across as an intelligent woman. If you didn't know about the conspiracy theory and just heard her talking about her relationship with Ricky, you might think, here's a woman who wants to get out of a relationship, and the best interests of the children are at her heart. And then this is just so transparent to me. These details are not the details you would know just listening to Hoaxed. Just listening to it, you would not know this. Don't know why they've included. Well, I do have my suspicions about why they've included it. And that this writer takes the voice and the perspective of Monstrous and says, uses this kind of omniscient narration to say that Monstrous increasingly noticed Draper using the language of the conspiracy theorist. Oh, really? How do you know that? How have you got into his head there? Did you interview him about Hoax, or are you just mates? Have coffee together and you know what he's thinking so well. And again, cherry picking. In an interview on the day Russia invaded Ukraine, Draper, who is Russian, that's a crime, is it, to be Russian, told Monstrous the invasion was justified because of the cabal of elites controlling the world. The dichotomy between charming mother and sinister plotter was intriguing. This is Montrall writing. And yet Montrall has that same nasty attitude to Ella that Monstrous has. Interesting. So Russia versus Ukraine is being brought in on this because a Russian doesn't think that the Ukrainian invasion or the ongoing aggression that has been really funded and deployed by the West, the usual suspects. So because Ella Gariva, aka Draper, doesn't believe in the Russia-Ukraine narrative that's being put out there, she becomes a sinister plotter. So he holds her views on war, again, a war that her people are involved in, and then holds that against her. So, Montrall, come and speak to me. I've got many questions for you. Conspiracy theory, conspiracist, the conspiracy, driving conspiracy theories. Down here, Monstrous heads to Marrakech in Morocco, where Christie, Draper's partner in crime, He was a criminal. They've committed a crime that they have not been charged for, that has not been investigated, conveniently because it was on Moroccan soil. Give me a break. So just like Monstrous, Montrall, what's his name? Stephano Montrall is also on the side of the possible perpetrators and is summarily positioning Ella Gariva as a sinister plotter because she doesn't like the Ukrainian narrative that's being pushed in the media. And Abe, who is watching this, thank you, Abe, I think that's you, as a criminal. And that's what the whole thing does. They're the criminals. So using the media to trial by popular opinion rather than going through the courts, it's really, really not right. Look at this. Don't know if you can see that. Look at this. Look at all the conspiracy theories. It's worth looking at and having a highlighter next to you. See all that repeated words. Now this is the bit that really I think is the whole point of this. It goes on to explain that there are people in high positions, establishment figures, who have done real jobs, and yet they are telling me things I've seen no justification for. This is MONSTROUS speaking. You can tell how important they are to driving conspiracy theories. So again, it's preemptive, aware that there are going to be some establishment figures, people with authority, with credibility. Who do you think they are? Put them in the comments. Coming out to defend the Hampstead children. And this seeks to preemptively undermine their ideas. Like it's positioning there as a few like wacko renegades out there who somehow have good jobs, real jobs. Oh my gosh, real job, and you believe in child sex abuse. It's just awful. This is one of the purposes. I think this piece has a couple of purposes. Position Abe and Ella as criminals, torturers, without actually convicting them, preemptively undermining anybody who's in a high position who might come out to back the children, because that's going to happen. And then thirdly, it's to link the Hampstead children's case with Pizzagate and QAnon. It says, "8 years after Hampstead," this is MONSTROUS speaking, "we've had Pizzagate, QAnon, and all these other huge conspiracy theories. They are so similar. There's the satanic and paedophile elements and a bleeding over into real life violence. In the world we live in today, there is not a demarcation between offline and online." So what might be Montrall's, or rather the Guardian, very conservative status quo style big player, huge player in the mainstream media, why might they want to connote or conflate Hampstead, the Hampstead SRCA cover-up, with QAnon and Pizzagate? And it's obvious, it's to discredit them. So we know that there were elements of Pizzagate that are 100% true. There's evidence for it, it's real, it's out there, fact. But the mainstream media, just like they have with many other real facts, they have positioned anyone who believes in Pizzagate or QAnon as woo, and therefore this is also something that will, if you believe in it, you also will be lumped together with people who believe in QAnon and Pizzagate, and you'll be accused of wearing a tinfoil hat. In Australia, you'll probably be deemed a terrorist in a couple of months when they bring in their new dumb laws, new totalitarian laws against anybody who dares to question the mainstream narrative. And that, I think, is the point of what's his name? Stephano Montrall's 22nd of September. Very biased, very persuasive. It perpetuates the status quo. It supports the paedophile, the alleged paedophile perpetrators, and it supports MONSTROUS, and it certainly aims to conflate and undermine anybody who might be in the establishment, who might come out and actually say these kids were speaking the truth. So, conspiracy? Is there a hoax going on here? Is there a hoax going on here? Is this just coincidence? Have a read of it. I'll link it into the description. And in my next episode, I will go through with a similar fine-tooth comb the work of Patricia Nicol. So heads up, Patricia. We'll be looking for you on Twitter and email and so forth, so that you can come and speak to me and answer some questions. First of all, did you, like Montrall, know Monstrous when he worked for the same newspaper that you work for? Did your paths cross? Do you have coffee on a Saturday morning? Or is this a completely objective review that you've written? Goodbye and good luck, and please keep sharing information. Keep using a rational and calm tone to discuss these things so that we can help your average man, your average woman realize that this stuff goes on, and until we are able to stop it and say with confidence that those that have happened in plain sight, that we've all seen, that we've all watched children talking about this horrendous satanic ritual abuse, until we know that it's not going on anymore, we must not stop. And when it stops, we will, to coin Arthur Cattell's phrase, we will sing and dance in the streets, because we will be victorious. And the more we band together and pool our resources, pool our audiences, share, subscribe, notify. We all know somebody who is the victim of rape. We all know somebody who was abused as a child, their innocence taken from them, often by a teacher, by somebody in a religious order, by somebody who is a coach or a figure of authority and power, and that is not right. So if you don't do it for the Hampstead children, do it for those adults who you know who have suffered as children. Because when you step up and they see that you give a damn and that you're prepared to sacrifice some of your own happy life for people who have been children and who have had this dastardly stuff done to them, as we unite around our survivors and we come together as one, we will topple this satanic ritual abuse. We've got to bring it down. It can't go on. Much love to Arthur Cattell, Angela Powers Disney, Edward de Boer, Meta Coppercoin, and all of you other wonderful people who are supporting and doing your best to overturn and bring to an end this demonic, malignant terror that is going on right now. Bye.